I'm still muted.
Okay, I can hear you now.
There we go. Okay. Can everybody hear me okay and all of that good stuff?
Yes, sir. If everybody can go into mute, I'm going to mute myself as well so there won't be any distractions. I'll monitor the chat. Doc, do you prefer to answer the questions at the end or throughout?
Um, Either or, if it's something that's pressing on something we just covered, let's go ahead and just address it at that time.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, I'll monitor the chat, and if I think it needs to be addressed, then either me, Lysandra, or Josie will chime in.
Okay, and so for clarity, do you see the slide screen or the Zoom screen?
Yes, sir. We see the slide screen.
All righty. Good morning, everybody. My name is George Dandridge Jr. I am an enrolled agent and a certified tax coach. I'm the founder and president of Dandridge Investment Group, which parents Elite Eight Tax and Business Advisors, Elite Eight Tax Pro Solutions and Academy, Cannot Boss, which is a cannabis accounting wordplay, and Biome Publishing, which is an acronym for Books Inside of Me. I belong to the National Association of Enrolled Agents, where I serve on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. I also belong to the American Bar Association, the Texas Society of Enrolled Agents, the American Society of Tax Problem Solvers, American Institute of Certified Tax Planners, National Society of Tax Professionals, and the National Association of Cannabis and Accounting and Tax Professionals. And I know I've seen some of you in those places. I'm also a fellow of the National Tax Practitioner Institute, a certified tax coach, certified crypto tax expert, QuickBooks Pro advisor, and host of the global entrepreneur podcast, Boss Talk Radio, and a nationally recognized speaker and subject matter expert. And first thing I want to do is go ahead and thank uh, Melinda Tolbert for having me as a part of this awesome program. I was very excited when she reached out to me. And the team that we're here with, we were all in Vegas earlier last year doing USTCP studies in preparation. So we got to know each other well. We've shared some stages in previous environments. And then I want to congratulate each and every one of you. And I want to drive this point home because you being here today means that if nothing else, at a bare minimum, you're so interested in your profession, you want to find out how to go about getting to the next level. And that's important. For that alone, you should be commended. If you've made the commitment already to take the exam, that is another commendable action because you can't pass if you don't take it. Failing is just a temporary situation. So we know that you all will pass, and we're here to help you do that. And I want to welcome you to the EA Boot Camp. So give yourself a round of applause. I think we kind of covered where everybody is here from. We do understand that we have different tenures going on in here, so there are different levels of understanding. So don't be offended when we touch on some of the basics if you're a seasoned pro at this thing, but we want to make sure we encapsulate and involve everybody. Fair enough? Give me a thumbs up in the chat if you're ready to do that. So, starting off, we want to know if you can answer these questions right now before we even get into what the program is. Do you know and understand what an enrolled agent is? Do you know what it means to practice before the IRS? Do you know who may practice before the IRS? Have you heard of or familiar with Circular 230? And you've looked at becoming an enrolled agent. Do you know what those responsibilities are as an enrolled agent? Now, it doesn't matter if you don't know any of those answers right now, because by the time we get to the end of this 12 weeks, you'll have a well-rounded view and understanding of all of those things and be prepared to come to the intensives in Vegas, where we're really going to set you up for success on the exam. So let's start with what an enrolled agent is. And uh, some of you may have seen my intentional controversy that I put out there on social media about the differences between representation and resolution. And Melinda started off the hour asking that question, who thinks it's the same or who doesn't understand what the difference is? So let's start with this. By the very words, if you remove tax completely from that equation, by the very words themselves, representation and resolution is not the same thing. So there's no need to debate that. So an enrolled agent has earned, you see the EA in there, earned, the privilege of representing taxpayers before the Internal Revenue Service by either passing a three-part comprehensive IRS tax test that covers individual and business tax returns, or through experience as a former IRS employee. And I can tell you that it's just not working for the IRS. You have to work in certain divisions for a tenured period of time. And this status, the enrolled agent status, this is the highest credential the IRS will award. People that obtain it, which is all of your instructors here, they must adhere to an ethical standard and complete 72 hours of continuing education courses every 3 years. And I can tell you that when you get there, when you pass this test, because this was a question that was asked, well, what part of the exam teaches you how to represent taxpayers? It really just lays the foundation and the framework for your responsibilities and your actions and what you need to do. The education is ongoing even after your license. And while 72 hours may sound like a lot, if any of you are annual filing season program participants, you're already doing 18 hours a year just to retain that. So you're essentially getting pretty close to that 72 anyway. Well, I can tell you that once you earn your enrolled agent credential, the education piece gets real addictive. Lysandra and I, for example, we are both doing in excess of 150 hours a year, but we're extreme tax nerds. So you're really learning from people that are immersed in this. So if you are currently considering coming to Vegas and you're on the fence about that, what we're also hoping is that over the course of the next couple of weeks, we will have solidified that decision for you and help you make the commitment to enrolling and passing the special enrollment exams. So in Vegas, you'll learn the best practices for exam success, how to become an EA, and also how to maintain your status once you become a licensed practitioner. So the conflict in the question of resolution, representation, so forth and so on. Enrolled agents do not handle criminal matters, okay? They cannot address the tax court in the sense of representing a taxpayer in court, unless that enrolled agent is also an attorney or a U.S. tax court practitioner. But the interesting fact is, most of the docketed cases for tax court, only 3% of them actually make it to court. So quite candidly, what this means is an enrolled agent is able to handle 97% of all the issues that arise in taxation. The reason for that is because with your ongoing commitment to education and you're being immersed in tax law, you will have the tools to work with the IRS. And I want you to not look at the IRS as the enemy or the opposition, because you will learn to work collegiately with members of the IRS, because the end game is always to get the best results for your client. So if you don't have a practice that, for all intents and purposes, is somewhat customer centric, that's what that next level is about, really serving your clients and getting the best possible results for them. And so we're going to talk some more about what an enrolled agent is, what they do, but let's talk about practice before the IRS because this is a major area of confusion. So practice before the IRS, what this involves is any presentation to the IRS or its officers or employees relating to taxpayers' rights, privileges, or liabilities under the laws and regulations administered by the IRS. This will include preparing documents or advising on preparation, filing or submission of documents, including tax returns with the IRS on behalf of a taxpayer. Okay. And so there was the question of, well, what's different than preparing a tax return? Well, when you're preparing a tax return and you're an unenrolled preparer, you're not subject to certain sanctions and responsibilities as someone who is an enrolled or licensed practitioner. And furthermore, you have a very, very limited recourse in dealing with any decisions the IRS would make on behalf of that taxpayer. So enrolled agents are able to represent a taxpayer at conferences, hearings, meetings with the IRS, any of those matters regarding a taxpayer's rights, privileges, and liabilities under the law. So certain tasks, yeah, anyone can perform certain tasks, such as preparing a tax return, but that does not constitute practice before the IRS. And that's really where that fine line happens between resolution and representation, is that in resolution, you cannot stand in the gap for that taxpayer. You cannot negotiate that conversation. And so, by nature, the compensation is legitimately different because it's kind of like changing your oil. Well, you can change your oil; it doesn't make you a mechanic, but you'd probably pay some more for somebody else to go ahead and do that for you that really know what they're doing and save you the time and agony of a mistake, right? So the people that can practice before the IRS, this includes enrolled agents, CPAs, and attorneys that have unlimited representation rights. And they can represent those clients in audits, payment issues, appeals, and things like that beyond those correspondence matters that typically happen in resolution. And they can do this whether they prepared the return in question or not for any tax year and really before any taxing authority, because there's not a state that doesn't recognize the enrolled agent credential and deal with them as such. So it's really a powerful thing. And when you're in this space, I want you guys to, and you're going to get this as you kind of go through when Melinda talks about representation, but it is really a powerful thing. Consider this: your signature alone can stop a government agency in its tracks. That's what it means to be an enrolled agent, right? So, some other people that can do representation, but it does have limits. It's not unlimited representation rights. These include enrolled retirement plan agents and enrolled actuaries, but it's within certain confines of Circular 230. So they don't have unlimited representation rights. And a valid P10, contrary to popular belief, does not provide any representation rights. The IRS will not grant limited representation rights to an unenrolled preparer. If you have an AFSP record of completion, which I personally consider the minimal standard to calling yourself a tax professional, but that's neither here nor there. But it says that you're at least vested enough to get that continued education and be identified by the IRS. But If you don't have that, you don't even have the limited representation for a tax return that you may have prepared. Well, who wouldn't want that? If you go through all of this stuff to set up your practice and learn taxation or whatever, why would you expose your client to not being able to take care of them on some simple matter because you didn't do an AFSP record of completion? And for the record, once you become a licensed enrolled agent, you're exempt from having to participate in that program each year. You just have to maintain your continuing education credits and your reinstatement every third year, depending on your cycle. So, as I mentioned, unenrolled return preparers, they cannot represent taxpayers regardless of the circumstance. Okay. An unenrolled preparer cannot represent a taxpayer before other offices of the IRS, such as collections or appeals. They can't execute closing agreements as the result of an appeal or some other type of audit. They can't extend the statutory period for tax assessments or collections. They can't execute waivers, execute claims for refunds, or receive refund checks. And if you happen to end up with a client that is overseas in this global economy, you're really going to want to be able to step in on a client's behalf. And so this is why this is such a powerful designation and the highest that the IRS will award. So another factor in this is Circular 230, because all of us have seen some antics on this thing called social media, on this internet. There's more missing information than just misinformation, right? I'm sure you've all seen some tax advice that make you scratch your head and make you wonder if you're crazy. That's the benefit of being part of a community that has that knowledge and that you can share stuff off of. We bounce stuff off of each other all the time, and there's a reason for that, because we have to answer to that governing document of Circular 230. This is the rules, if you would, that govern people who are able to practice before the IRS. It authorizes specific sanctions and violations, as well as duties and obligations, and describe the procedures that apply to administrative proceedings for discipline of a tax practitioner. And so if you're an unenrolled preparer, you're doing this as a side business during the season and things of that nature, there's not as many consequences for you, as much recourse for you, that which governs people who are able to practice before the IRS. And this is our livelihood. So we take it very, very seriously, because we are not allowed to take ill-advised positions. And we'll talk about that some more later when we get into the responsibilities of an enrolled agent.
Doc, I
But
think
sir,
that's a good place to do the poll question. I am going to put
okay,
it in the chat, and I'll read it as well for the people that aren't visual learners like myself. So the question is, an unenrolled tax return preparer with an AFSP record of completion is authorized to do which of the following? They can represent a taxpayer in the collection or appeals process. They can execute claims for refund checks. They can represent taxpayers before customer service representatives, or they can receive refund checks. A, B, C, or D? Put your answer in the chat. Dorothy said C. Giovanni, C, C, C. Okay, everybody is saying C. C, C, C. Nobody thinks they can receive the refund checks? C. Okay, everybody is saying C. I like it, I like it, I like it. Okay, just about everybody said C. C is the correct answer. Good job. So an unenrolled tax preparer can only represent taxpayers before customer service representatives. And all that means is if you prepared that tax return, you had to have prepared that tax return, you're able to call customer service, the IRS customer service, and that's it. You can't do anything else. If they get a collections letter or anything, you can't have any dealing with that at all. You can't represent them in collections, the appeals process. It's calling customer service for a return that you prepared is just about the only thing you can do. I can tell you now, if somebody comes to you for help, they don't want to be a part of the resolution process at all. They want to be removed from the equation. If you're not a licensed enrolled agent, a qualified CPA or a qualified attorney, you cannot represent that tax preparer. You can be a witness, but they don't want that. They don't want to be a part of the process. So just keep that in mind. Okay, Doc, back to you.
I actually want to spend a moment right there on that point right there because um, that's a very common thing in the market, and it came up quite a bit on social media this week as people were gravitating towards the the master class series, and it's a legitimate question to that point, and so let's look at this way. Can you direct a client on how to fill out certain documents, um, in their interests? Absolutely, you could. The big issue with that is that one, you're not licensed, so your E&O insurance is not going to cover or protect you in that regard. Two, if there's anything that happens in the course of that and the IRS is communicating with that client now, there's nothing you can do to help them or step in that manner. And so that's why uh, there's kind of a disinterest in the term resolution for those of us that are able to represent, because resolution just means we got to the end of a problem. And if you're not a licensed representative and you have this limited toolbox, are you really giving them the best solution? Do you know what the best solution is? Because the things that are required through getting a POA and during the discovery process is so intensive, you know, the stuff you just see flying online may not be the best solution for that client. And you have to keep that in mind. And I don't think there's an enrolled agent walking planet Earth that if you were to reach out to them and say, hey, I have a client with this problem, can I work with you? Can I shadow you on it and refer them to you and watch you work through this thing? You'd be surprised. I don't think no one will tell you no, unless it's one of those trust fund recovery cases in the millions. We just don't have time for that. Right. So going back to Circular 230, which is let's talk about the censorship, the discipline on it, which is essentially a public reprimand. We see this a lot in the news when you see the FBI and or Department of Treasury come down on people doing tax fraud or whatever. That's more on the criminal side of things, because put this in your head. You're dealing with federal documents. So instantaneously, we're talking about mail fraud, wire fraud. Like, you have to respect the nature of your business. You are dealing with the federal government and this is why we always criticize when someone puts self-prepared on a tax return that they've done. If you substantially prepared a document, you should be willing to put your name on that, right? So this can result in disbarment, suspension, I'm sorry, and it can be fixed or for indefinite period of time. And there is a process to be reinstated before the Office of Professional Responsibility, before you can have those privileges restored. And you see that word keep coming up. It's a privilege. You don't have a right to practice before the IRS. You earn the privilege of practicing before the IRS by demonstrating that you can meet the competency standards that are involved. And we're also going to talk about those competency requirements a little bit later. You heard me mention the Office of Professional Responsibility. Let's talk about what that is. This is the office that has professional oversight, exclusive oversight over practitioner conduct and discipline. Um, they institute the disciplinary proceedings, pursue sanctions, and really the governing practice before the IRS, as I just mentioned. The office also conducts extensive education and outreach to practitioners and other tax professionals, and that's another distinction right there. But I think Josie gets into that a little bit later when she's talking about what a tax practitioner is and your rights in that regard. Do we have any questions that came up, Melinda?
I don't have any questions, but I do have another poll question.
Okay.
All right, so I'll put this one in the chat and I'll read it as well. Michael Myers is a tax preparer and works in an office that employs 4 other tax preparers. Kimberly Wilson is a CPA who was suspended from practice for 1 year by the IRS. Kimberly knows Michael and asked him for employment during the 1 year period of suspension. Michael employs Kimberly for the sole purpose of corresponding and communicating with the IRS on issues arising for Michael's clients. Has Michael done anything wrong? A, no, Michael is allowed to employ Kimberly because her suspension is for less than 2 years. B, no, because the clients are really Michael's, not Kimberly's. C, no, because Kimberly's work for Michael does not constitute practice before the IRS. And D, yes, this relationship is prohibited. I see a lot of D's. Scott says D, Lena D, Felicia D, Latoya D, Donna D. Okay, everybody is saying D. Kishina said Michael is jeopardizing his livelihood. Girl, you are so right. Michael is risking it all. That's the correct answer. Good job, everyone. The correct answer is D. The relationship is prohibited. And I think our tax attorney, Josie, I think she gets into that in detail in Vegas. I can't wait for her to go over that. We have some really good case studies about that as well.
Yes, yes.
All right, Doc, back to you. Lena said she
And
loves the pop-up questions. It's like the IRS training for CE credits. Yes, we're gonna have fun in Vegas. Instead of just doing regular questions in Vegas, we're actually going to do a game of Jeopardy after each section. So I'm excited about that. And I'll be hosting Jeopardy, so we're gonna have a lot of fun.
yeah,
All
I
right.
can't wait for Vegas. I'm really excited about that. And going back to that polling question, which kind of comes up in the responsibilities of anyone who is able to or has the privilege of practicing before the IRS, you have a responsibility for due diligence to who you employ and or partner or work with. Um, and I don't know if that's kind of an overshadowed fact, but the same way those of you that prepare tax returns have a due diligence requirement for certain credits, child tax credits and earned income credits. If you are If you own a tax practice or you're responsible for hiring someone and that person holds some sort of a credential, or even if they don't and they have some sort of a sanction, it's your responsibility to know that or learn that prior to the hire and not put yourself in that position because you can be sanctioned as well. Not to mention that any results that they come up with may be disregarded because they weren't entitled to practice before the IRS. Which takes us right into those, that was good timing, right into those professional responsibilities for enrolled agents. So just like when you're doing preparation, client confidentiality is a must, but what's added to that confidentiality is you have to provide accurate and truthful advice. I know if you've been in the tax industry for just one season, you have had someone approach you with some kind of a shenanigan, uh, asking, can you do something that was either unethical or illegal, or they tell you, well, my last tax person did this or they did it that way or what have you. Um, there's really some major consequences to doing that once you cross that threshold of becoming licensed. And even if you just have a prospect, right, and they have a situation, they're looking to move to your practice for taxes, but in the onboarding process, you find out that they had a past year or something, um, where something was done in a manner that wasn't legal or wasn't the correct way. You actually have an obligation to make them aware of it, and you can't force them to turn around and go back and do the right thing, but you do have an obligation to make them aware of it. You're supposed to report any suspected illegal or unethical behavior to appropriate authorities. Now, culturally, I think we all kind of look at that one and go, well, if you're not my client, I'm not going to throw the rock at somebody else that's across town. They did what they did, but they can stay over there. Well, you're actually supposed to report any type of illegal activity if you know someone is washing money through a business from some illegal activity or something. You're actually have a responsibility to report that matter. And you're supposed to use reasonable efforts to identify and ascertain the facts that are relevant before taking any position or issuing any opinion. So you see a lot of times on social media where someone asks a question, and oftentimes what comes across as a response may sometimes seem condescending or whatever. Sometimes it actually is, but understand that depending on who this is coming from, what they may be actually doing is trying to get more detail before they answer your question, because even something as simple as what may seem to you a simple question of uncertainty, and they throw out an answer, well, it may be a generally true answer, but that doesn't make it true for your specific circumstance. And so when it comes to uh, seeking advice from other professionals, there's actually a competence standard that you're required to meet for that as well. And we have also have a responsibility to acknowledge when something is outside of our realm of practice or knowledge. It doesn't mean we're no longer an EA at that point, but if, excuse me, if I am dealing with a crypto matter. Despite being a certified crypto tax expert, I know that Lysandra does way more crypto stuff than I do on the regular tax preparation and whatnot. So while I may take a position on representing somebody, and this has actually happened uh, when it comes to trust and people trying to grow assets in their trust. Well, yeah, I'm a trust expert, but there was some deliberation on whether or not at that time whether or not crypto was money, whether it was property, how it was to be treated on the tax return. And yeah, I bugged her about it. And she was nice enough to entertain me on that and help me get to a reasonable position that at least I could defend. Even if I was wrong, it was a reasonable position based on the facts of that particular matter. So, wanted to give you guys just a tidbit of what it means to practice before the IRS and uh, what the power of an enrolled agent is and why it matters. Because the common discussion is you don't need this to do that. Well, unless you're just interested in pushing a single solution option on people and helping them fill out the paperwork, if you're really interested in representing your clients and representing their best interests and protecting their rights as a taxpayer, this is the boot camp for you. And I'll turn it back over to Melinda.
Okay, awesome presentation. Thank you, Doc. Before we get into the boot camp, I have two more questions that I want to post. I just submitted one. An enrolled practitioner's communications with his client are confidential. One, with regard to non-criminal tax matters before the IRS only. B, with regard to non-criminal tax matters before the IRS or in non-criminal tax proceedings in federal court. C, with regard to non-criminal tax matters before the IRS or in non-tax criminal matters proceedings in federal court, and also with regard to non-criminal tax matters before other federal but not state agencies, and D, for all non-criminal purposes. By the way, guys, these questions are questions that are highly tested on the exam. We're not just giving you info and asking these questions for no reason. You're going to have to know this stuff to pass the EA exam. So let's see. A, B, C, or D? Karen says A. Charlene, D. D, D, D. Okay, D. A lot of people are saying D. Okay, D, D, D. Okay, so everybody that said D, I need you to sign up today, okay? D is not the correct answer. Honestly, when I first read this question, I thought it was D, but I had to go back and read it. It's not D, it's B. The correct answer is with regard to non-criminal tax matters before the IRS or in non-criminal tax proceedings in federal court. So let me give you an explanation on that one because that one tripped a lot of people up. The explanation for that answer is all limited confidentiality privileges exist with regard to communications between an enrolled practitioner and his client about tax advice, but its privilege is limited only to non-criminal tax matters before the IRS and to non-criminal federal court tax matters. It cannot be criminal. That's why you always need to be connected to a tax attorney. Anything criminal that I get with in any of my cases, or if I even feel like after the client tells me what's going on, if I feel like pause right there, because anything you tell me that's going to be criminal related is not going to be privileged. So I contact Josie. We get our co-bail agreement put in place. and then Josie takes over with that client. So just remember, when it comes to criminal, it's not, none of the conversations are privileged. Please stay connected to a tax attorney. I'm sure that Josie would love to connect with anybody that doesn't have a tax attorney to reach out to. Any
Belinda,
questions?
before you go to the next one, can you kind of double down on that part about stopping the conversation when it even appears criminal? They don't have to tell you that they did this crime. If you suspect and this is why discovery, this is why that due diligence of discovery before accepting the client is a thing, right? So
Right.
before you just issue out a POA, you kind
Mhm.
of want to know more about what you're getting
Right.
into.
Yeah. Well, there's a such thing as knowing too much. So if the client tells you something and you are summoned in court, that conversation, if it was anything criminal that they told you, is not privileged unless you have a co-bail agreement with an attorney like Josie. And that's why Josie is my best friend. Because when people call me about criminal cases, I'll be like, I don't want to hear nothing else. Let me connect you with my criminal attorney and she can take over from here. So in short, it's because the conversations aren't privileged unless it's not criminal. And that's another thing, another reason why you need to become a licensed enrolled agent. None of tax preparers' conversations are privileged. All EA's conversations are privileged unless it's criminal. Do I have any more questions about that particular question? The co-bail letter, co-bail agreement? I don't see anything in the chat. Okay. All right. So that was a little challenging, and I did that on purpose because y'all was getting all of them right. Let's see, one more. So the correct answer, yes, the correct answer is B. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Which of the following is practiced before the IRS? A, appearing as a witness in tax court for a corporation. B, discussing a client's tax return with an IRS revenue officer. C, furnishing information at the request of the IRS. Or D, appearing as a witness for a taxpayer. A, B, C, or D. Karen says C. Dylan C. Got some B's in there. Okay, got a few B's. B's and C's. Jakara says A. Okay. B, C. Okay. So the correct answer is B. Make sure you know that because that's highly tested. Which of the following is practiced before the IRS? Who said I'm mad with you, Karen. Doc just went over that. Appearing as a witness. That's it. Like y'all don't a regular tax preparer. That's all you can do is appear as a witness. But remember, when you appear as a witness, the client has to be present. A client don't want to be present. Listen, they don't want to talk to the IRS. They don't want to have anything to do with the IRS at all. That's why they come to you. I haven't had a client yet after I tell them if a revenue officer or anybody from the IRS contacts you, do not talk to them. Let them know you have representation. Give them my contact number. I always tell my clients that, and when I tell them that, they're so relieved
Shoulders
just
fall.
knowing that they don't have to talk to them anymore. But if I'm not licensed, I can't do that. I can't remove the client from the equation. You have to do conference calls with the client on the phone. The client has to be present, and you're just there as a witness. You're not representing the client. Okay, any questions on, Karen said she meant B. Okay, Karen, I'm gonna give you a pass, but just know, I guarantee you, you will not miss that question on the test.
And
Any
just
more?
to double down on that, that is the very definition right there is of the representation part. For those of you that may have a frat or sorority or some other association, when you're wearing their brand, their colors, that you're representing them. Well, that's the same kind of thing there. You're standing in the gap for that taxpayer. And the last thing you want is to take position and have that taxpayer on the phone with you and they start talking.
Right. It's kind of like when you see criminal cases on TV, once they say I want representation, they have to discontinue the interview. Same goes with taxes. If a revenue officer pops up at someone's business or someone's home and they say, I want to exercise my right to get representation, they have to leave. They can't answer, they can't ask any more questions. They can't do anything. And I think it's about 10 days that the taxpayer have to get representation. But they have to suspend the interview. And that's, I tell a lot of my clients that as well. If they don't retain me after the consultation, I'll be like, well, when they pop up at your house, not if, but when they pop up at your house or when they pop up at your business, tell them you want representation and call me. The fee is going to be more because you waited till the last minute. So I just make sure I give them that information as well.
And business interruption insurance does not cover the IRS showing up, interfering with your business.
They'll shut you down. They will shut you down. Okay, so if we don't, do we have any questions about any of the pop-up poll questions that we just went over? We're going to talk a lot more about all of that in Vegas. Those are some of the most commonly tested questions on the practice part. So we're going to drill it in you and make sure that you understand how to answer those questions. That's just a teaser of the Jeopardy in Vegas. Okay, Doc, can you share your screen with the boot camp info? I don't have mine pulled up. So those of you who aren't aware, we are having a 3-day live event in Las Vegas at the Grand Aria Resort. I go to Vegas at least 4 times a year. Uh, Most of the time when I'm in Vegas is for tax conferences. Other times is because I'm a big gambler. I really like to gamble. So I'll get somewhere and find my machine and I hide from everybody and I do my thing. I gamble. So we're going to be at the Aria Resort. The boot camp is pull up those dates. Go to the next slide, Doc. That's the Aria Resort, by the way, if you have not been to Vegas before. Can you go to the next slide, Doc? Charlene wants to know yes, Charlene, we will send out all the recordings. So these are the rooms at Aria. I am very bougie. A lot of conferences are held at hotels in the downtown old Vegas. I'm not knocking anybody, but I'm not staying down there at all. I like Aria. I'm bougie. These are Aria rooms. The top left is their standard room, and is nothing standard about their rooms. These are how all their standard rooms look. To the right, top right, this is a picture of the suites. Normally I get a suite when I go because I'm most of the time I'm there for a week, so I get comfortable and I need a suite. Bottom right is the suite bathroom that I absolutely love. And the bottom left is Aria Resort Spa. So when you're there, make sure you pay the spa visit. Is really nice. It's kind of similar to Jeju if you've ever been to Jeju before. If you haven't, it's an experience. I won't dive into it, but it's an experience. Can you go to the next slide for me, Doc? So in the boot camp, just go to the next slide.
Video's not playing there.
It's okay. You can go to the next slide. I don't need the video. I just want to show them what's all included. All right, so everything that is included with your boot camp. We are partnered with Fast Forward Academy. Fast Forward, in addition to the live sessions that I attended for my EA classes, I use Fast Forward Academy's material. I tried Gleam. I don't know if it's Gleam or Gleam, but I tried them as well. Their materials are good, but it's not, they're not an easy read versus Fast Forward Academy. Fast Forward Academy is easy. It's easy to understand. You can have access to all three parts until you pass. It took me a few years because I was on and off with studying, so I had access to all my materials up until I actually passed. At the boot camp, you'll be giving a book, which is the study guide. That's going to be your Bible. You'll have access to hundreds of video lectures. You'll have access to over 3,000 EA review questions with detailed explanations. And you'll also have unlimited EA practice exams. The practice exams is going to be a very good portion of where you need to spend your time. And it's also going to let you know when you're ready to take the actual EA exam. Once you start scoring about a 70 on the practice exams, that means that you're probably ready to take the real exam. Do not schedule your exam until you are ready. I don't know if you join our info sessions, but we explained that those, when you schedule, it's non-refundable. So if you schedule because you feel like you will be ready within a certain time period and you're not ready, will you lose that money? And I think it's $206 per part. So paying that over and over and over again can become costly. You'll also be able to study anywhere because it's all the material is mobile friendly, tablet friendly, and of course, desktop friendly. You can go to the next slide, Doc. And what I really love about Fast Forward Academy is if you get a question wrong on any of the quizzes, they provide you a very detailed explanation of why what you chose was wrong and a detailed explanation of the correct answer. Another whole, all of this is included in the boot camp. You'll get the digital flashcards, licensed instructors, of course, that's us. We'll have cheat sheets, a live Jeopardy. You'll have access to our private Facebook group. If you are not connected to anybody that is on the EA journey, you'll be able to find study buddies in the private Facebook group. We are having a EA cram course in December. The cost is $4.99. Once you join us in Vegas or once you pay for the EA bootcamp, you'll be able to join us at no additional charge. If you have a team of people in your firm and you want to get a group rate, there is a discounted group rate. Talk to me after the masterclass today. You will get the entire Fast Forward EA Smart Bundle, and the cost of that is $699, but you won't have to pay that. Once you invest in the EA Bootcamp, all of that is included. If you don't have any intentions or any plans on opening your own tax resolution firm, you just want to do the work, but you're looking for someone to mentor you or to work with, you have access to all of us, and we all are looking for licensed EAs. I'm telling you, once you become an EA, your income is going to triple, and you're gonna be paid big bucks, even if it's just to work for someone. That can look like 100,000 just to work under someone. So just imagine what that money looks like if you start your own firm. Go to the next slide for me, Doc. Okay, so if you register today, you're going to have access to all of this that I just went over. You are all tax prepared, so you know that it's going to be a paid vacation. If you're like me, you're always looking for tax deductions. You're spending your pre-tax dollars. Well, your airfare, your hotel, and even the boot camp fees are all tax write-offs. You get all of this for $19.95. And again, this is a tax deduction. And you are going to be amongst the elite in the tax resolution world. If you haven't listened to or watched the webinar on the our info session, I shared with you all that my clients, some of them pay like 100,000 up front. So that's one client. Do you know how many tax returns, corporation tax returns, I would have to have done to receive $100,000? So if you haven't watched the info session, go back and watch it. I posted my receipt showing the $100,000 upfront fees that I get. The minimum fee for everybody that retains me is $5,500. So I will not accept the case less than $5,500. And my average case value is $10,500. So nobody can pay me any amount of money to go back to preparing taxes. Lysandra, one of our other EA instructors, she just got retained for a $3.2 million case. I won't spill the beans on how much she charged unless she wants to chime in and share.
Hi, okay.
Hey, girl. Give us the tea on this case.
No, so that case is going to take a while to get through. So the client paid a $20,000 retainer and $5,000 a month until the case is settled.
And we get that all the time. Like once you start getting those big well cases, I have 4 $100,000 cases right now. 2 of them pay upfront, and the other 2 are paying $7,000 per month. So the cash flow in tax resolution is amazing. I think my cash flow right now is about $25,000 to $30,000 a month. And that's without getting any new clients. So we're all excited for you all to join us at this top level. And we're rooting for you. I want to see a lot more of us become EAs. If it was hard to become an EA, everybody would become an EA. It's not easy. You're going to have to buckle down. You're going to have to counsel your hot girl summer and your hot boy summer, and you're going to have to get in the books and you got to get real serious about becoming an EA. That is all that I have. Next week, do we know what next week's session is? Anybody off the top? I think Lysandra. Lysandra, are you on next week? What's the topic for next week?
I do believe I am, but I don't know the topic because I have a couple of them. So I have to look.
Let me look real quick. Josie or Doc, do you have? Go to the next slide, Doc. Let me make sure I covered everything. If you are ready to sign up for the boot camp, I'll drop that link in the chat. Let me get it for you. Okay, some people are ready to sign up. Oh, and we have a cutoff limit of 80 people, so we can only have 80 people. For those of you that are on the fence, is that it? All right, here's the link for those of you that are ready to register. All right, I just dropped the link in the chat. There are payment options. If you would like to pay the 3 monthly installments, it will be $6.95, 3 monthly payments. Shoot me over an email and I can get you set up. I'll drop my email in the chat for the 3 monthly payments. But outside of that, if you missed the early bird special, I'm sorry, you're late. to the party. We did have an early bird special. We might bring the early bird special back. We'll see. We'll see. Okay, Josie said week 2 is going to be about corporation penalties. And that is a good time for this because the corporation tax returns, the deadline is tomorrow, right? The 15th?
For the S corps and partnerships.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll talk about those penalties for corporations and partnerships on next week. Lysandra will be kicking us off next week for week 2. And we're going to have some more fun.
I wanted to drop one more incentive in for anybody that may be on the fence about your investment. If you scroll back through my social media, you'll see that it was right at the end of 2022. I was on vacation in Europe, and one of my referral partners kept dinging me, but he's also a friend, so I actually answered, and he had someone that just insisted on talking to me. Like, I'm on vacation, like I don't have my computer or whatever. He's like, well, the guy saw you speak at something, he really wants to talk to you. He said he'll pay whatever. This guy paid me $12,500 to have a 2-hour conversation.
I got that for too. Yes, I love it. Yes. Because they're in trouble, y'all. Just think about if you were in tax trouble. I've had my own tax issues, and I'll talk about that in Vegas, which is how I got into tax resolution. And I couldn't find anybody within 100 miles that was licensed to represent me. So I had to learn how to do it myself. And I would have paid anybody any amount of money to get me out of the damn trouble that I was in with the IRS. And so we'll talk more about that in Vegas. Karen wants to know, is there a possibility to bring the early bird special back? So it won't be the same early bird special. It will be a reimbursement for somebody that has paid, but we'll talk about the qualifications for that on next week's masterclass. You have to have had already paid, and you have to attend all 12 sessions. I know those are 2 of the requirements.
And can I give an incentive as well, Melinda?
Yes.
My firm is looking for EAs, and I mean,
Tell them who
and
you are, Queen.
I'm sorry. I'm Josie Harris Walton. I don't think my camera's on. Let's see. So I can get my camera on. Okay, I can't look it on. Okay, I am Josie Harris Walton with Quantarios, and we are looking for
She's the tax attorney, y'all. She don't like to brag on herself, but this is one of
Right?
the best damn tax attorneys that you gonna connect with.
And I'm sorry, I don't like to brag, but I am the tax attorney. We are looking for EAs, and we only look for EAs. I don't hire anyone else but EAs. I don't even hire tax attorneys, I'm gonna be honest. I'd rather have an EA in my camp any day. I just hired one, and we're looking for 2 more, but you have to be an EA. So that's one of the incentives for us, and it's good money. It's actually great money.
It is. Okay. Awesome. Lysandra, do you have anything to drop before we close out today's session?
Listen, I'm not giving no incentives. If you don't get yourself over here. Listen, I tell anybody, anytime anybody asks me about why I became an enrolled agent, I became an enrolled agent because I didn't want to take the AFSP test every year. I kid you not. I did not have any grandiose ideas about saving the world. But once I found out what I had, I was like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. So when you ask that beginning question, like, do you know what an enrolled agent is? I was one of those that became an enrolled agent. I didn't know what it was. I just didn't want to take a test.
Really?
And then once I found out, it was on the paper. So that's why I'm like, listen.
Yeah. Tax preparation, a lot of people don't want to hear it, but the honest truth is about to be a thing in the past. I'm sorry. I'm just going to be honest with you. The IRS They have their own tax preparation systems now. Taxpayers can't cheat like they used to. They don't like to pay. Y'all might as well come on to the big dog side. Leave that tax preparation behind. It's about to be a thing in the past. I promise you it is. It's not even worth it. All the due diligence penalties, the IRS is now targeting tax professionals for audits. I can't tell you how many due diligence audits comes across all of our desks. We have to represent tax professionals because they can't represent themselves. They're not knowledgeable about the due diligence. And some of them need representation in appeals because they tried to represent themselves and failed tremendously. So keep that in mind as well. You either gonna pay the IRS for the due diligence because they targeting y'all, or you're gonna pay to come to the big dog side where the EAs are. Okay, Shakina says she want out. Girl, me too. I wanted out. I was like, y'all can have that. You accusing me of stealing a $10 state check? Girl, you think I'm finna risk my life for a $10 state check? No, and it be the ones that you go over and beyond for that gives you the most headache. $350 ain't even worth like you. Nope, not doing it. Okay, well, we appreciate you all so much for joining us. We hope to see you in Vegas, and we hope to see you next week on the next masterclass. If there are no more questions, I'm going to end the session for today, and I will talk to you all next week.